In this tutorial, we're going to go through how to set up a basic AngularJS project. So the first thing you want to do is go ahead and download Node if you haven't already. There's a lot of tutorial for that. I do recommend using NVM, but downloading Node is the easiest way to get started. So NVM is basically if you want to have multiple package versions of Node, but you can just download the latest version. And yeah, so once you have that, you're going to go into a new folder, open the terminal, and we're going to run the command npm init. This is going to initialize your Node project. So let's just go with the default values. Okay, so once you run that, it's going to create a file called package.json. Don't worry about too much what this does, but this basically keeps track of some commands and the packages you install for your Node application. So first thing we want to do, let's organize our directory a little bit. Let's create a folder called server, and let's create another one called client. So let's make a file called app.js in the server. This is going to be where our server starts at. So first let's go console log in server, so we know we get here when we run it. So to run a JavaScript application, you basically just go node and then the file. So since ours isn't server, we're gonna go server/app.js. As you can see, once we run it, it's gonna run the commands inside. So let's gonna go to package.json and add a command that does this for us. So we're gonna call it dev, and we're gonna say node server/app.js. So it's just gonna run this command when you run npm run dev. Okay, so let's go try that. Yep, as you can see, it says in server, so it's running it. Next thing we want to do is let's go and install Express. So using npm is really easy. You just go npm I express. I stands for install. Okay, once that's installed, let's go back to here and import Express. Okay, now let's set router to express.router. Router is used for defining different endpoints or URLs that your server will serve. Now let's go and set app is equal to express, and let's have a variable for our port number to make it easier to use. Let's go port 3000, and yep, let's go define some routes. So to add a new route, you just go router.get or post or whichever method you want to use, and you say the endpoint. So let's go to /user. Okay, and then this is gonna take a function that has the parameters request response, and in here let's just go console.log in user get and respond.send. Let's just send some like hello world. Okay, so when someone hits this URL, they're gonna get the message hello world, and we're gonna see in user get in our console. Okay, so the next step is to actually have the app use the router, and we're gonna start the server by using app.listen. This takes a port number and also error, a function with error as the parameter, so like here. Okay, so if we get an error, we're gonna console.error, and if we don't get an error, we just say console log started server. Okay, and that should be it. Okay, let's go and try running our application. So just go npm run dev. Now when we go here in this endpoint, we get hello world, and in server, as you can see, we get in get user. If we go again, in get user again. Okay, so our app is set up. Let's do a couple of more things. Let's go ahead and import body parser. Don't worry about what this does. This basically helps with making requests from the front end. Okay, and then let's go on app.use, body parser.json, and app.use. Okay, let's just double check that our application is still working. And one thing I want to note is, like, if you go back to the application, let's change the message. Okay, if you go back here, the message does not change because we have to start our application again, and now the message changes. So to fix this, let's go and install a package called nodemon. This basically reruns our application automatically whenever a file changes. So once we have it installed, we want to change node to nodemon, and that should just work. If we npm run dev, you can see nodemon is watching. So we have the server running. Let's change the message. If we do that, refresh the page, it just changes it automatically without us needing to refresh the application. And if you change it one more time and look at the console, you can see it's starting again. Start the server once again. So basically reruns the application each time. Okay, so our backend should be set up now. Right, let's get started on the front end. So first thing we're gonna do is create a new file called index.html. And in this file, we're gonna just create a basic HTML file. And let's just have some content, just so we know when we get here. And so now we need to actually serve this HTML file. And to do that, one way to do it is using our server. We can host it. So whenever the user goes to a specific path, we're going to send them right to that file. So first, let's go and import one more package. Path is equal to required path. And we're going to use expresses static method. And let's go here. So this is gonna set it to directory name followed by client. So directory name is the directory of the server. So we're gonna go up one directory and then go to the client folder. So this allows us to use the files in the client folder. Okay, so now, we're gonna add another route after all of our other routes, because so if the user doesn't go to any of these routes, it's going to get to this one, which is going to be the default route. So let's go and make request response. Let's go and console log in the default. And in here, we're not going to send a message, we're going to send an actual file. That's going to be our HTML file. So to send that, we need to send it in a special way. So let's go and use path.join. The same thing as above, client, and inside client we're going to send index.html. Okay, so now we just added this route. So if the user doesn't go to this route, they're going to go to this route and they're going to get the HTML file we gave them. So let's go and check to see if that actually worked. So with which path are we on? 3000, nothing. We get hello frontend. So we did get to the HTML file. Perfect. And one thing we're going to do is good practice to have like something to separate the backend route. So we're going to have API before all of our routes. Alright, so okay, so the index is set up. Now we just need to install Angular. For that, we're going to go to Google, AngularJS download, go inside of it and download. You can right click the download. If you click on it, it doesn't download and opens it in a new tab, you just right click, download, and save link as. So once you have it downloaded, move it into this folder. We're gonna, as you can see, I already have it here. Now let's go ahead and make a new folder. Let's call it lib. So this is going to be our libraries. Let's go ahead and move this in here. Okay, now all we need to do is just include it in the HTML file, like any other script. And the source is going to be one directory up. Actually, it's just going to be lib angular.min.js. Okay, so now Angular should be imported. We need to do a couple of more changes to make sure Angular uses this. So I'm going to have Angular app ng app is equal to, we give it a name. So let's call it painting app. So this is going to be the name of our Angular application basically. You can name it whatever you want, but in the next step you also have to have that name. Okay, let's do a couple more quick things. Let's add ng view. So Angular content is going to be inside this body. And actually we should have it inside its own div. So let's go ng view. And so everything Angular is going to be inside here. So let's go one step further. Add one more div. For now, let's leave it empty. I'm going to say why we need that div. Let's go ahead and create a new file called let's call it like client.js. So inside client.js, we're gonna define our Angular application. So angular.module, let's have the name of the application we gave it, so they have the same name. And yep, that's really create our application. Now we need to add a controller. Controller is basically logic that executes on our application. It's gonna make more sense in a second. So let's call a controller like main, and don't worry too much about what these mean. For now, you can just copy it like this, and let's go ahead and do that, and that should be taken care of. So now we have a controller. So anything you want to, like any logic you want to have, you need to define the ng controller so it knows which type of logic it's going to use. Basically, it's going to say like which JavaScript file it's going to use. So we're going to set the ng controller to the same name as this one. So this is called main. Let's actually name it main control like that. I think it's a better convention. Alright, so it's defined now. Now we need to also include the scripts. So let's just go controllers and have the same thing basically. Source is going to be just client.js. Okay, so it should be set up. The way we can test it is just define a scope variable. So scope dot message is equal to hello in client. So scope is basically like declaring a variable that the HTML file can access. So in here we're just gonna, to be able to access it, we just have double curly brackets and the name of the variable, and we don't have this actual scope text in there. So I think this should just work. Let's see. Hello in client, yes. But we do have some errors. Or something is, oh, I misspelled something. So this is send file, not find. Okay, now it should work. Yep, so it's connected and it's working. Alright, so our Angular part is actually done. Next step is to install the database. So let's go ahead and go to Google and search for Docker desktop download. Then go to this page and just download it for your operating system and install it. Once it's installed, you can go on Google again, search for Docker MongoDB. So we're gonna actually download a particular Docker image that has MongoDB inside of it. So basically you just copy this command and you run it in terminal. I already run this command and I've downloaded it. So the next step is to actually create the instance. So open Docker desktop, go to images and find the Mongo one and press run. So this is gonna create a container. Basically it's gonna create a virtual machine where your database is gonna be running, and it's gonna like take care of everything basically. So let's just give it a name, and this is important. You need to set this to the same as this one. This is the default port for MongoDB, and this is how we're gonna access the MongoDB from our backend. So once you're done, just press run and MongoDB starts running. You can double check that MongoDB is running by going to localhost 27017, and if you get this message, that means it's running. Okay, now we're gonna have to add it to our Express backend, and to do that, let's go and come here. First we need to install a new package called Mongoose. Mongoose basically allows you to easily access MongoDB. Okay. And now let's go ahead and import it. Okay, so the package is imported. Now let's create or connect to our database. So let's first define a path for our database. This is going to be the default path is going to be like this: MongoDB 127.0.0.1 slash whatever database name you want to give it. Let's give it like paintings AngularJS. This doesn't have to be the same name as like the Docker container. You can give it whatever name you want. But yeah, so that's the DB path. Now once you do that, let's actually connect to Mongoose. So we get mongoose.connect. We pass the DB path and then say then. So once it's connected, we're gonna run some function. And then we also want to catch the error. Console.error could and let's also console.log the actual error. Okay, so let's see what we're gonna do. So once we're connected, we're gonna console.log connected to MongoDB. Okay, and I think that should take care of it. I think I'm missing. There we go. Okay, so let's run our application. npm run dev connected to MongoDB. So it's successful, but let's just double check it. To double check it, let's just create a basic schema and yeah, test if we can create something in the database. So let's go ahead and say create a schema. Let's actually do it further below. It's not good to do it here. Actually, first actually we're gonna have to get the schema. So const schema is equal to mongoose.schema. This is gonna give access to the schema more easily, so we don't have to say mongoose.schema every time. And so let's just create a schema inside here. So we have to actually be connected to the database before we can do anything. So if you're gonna do it on this file, we're gonna have to do it on here. Let's say user schema, a new schema, and it's just gonna be an object of username and password. Password, the most secure password, 123. Actually, sorry, this is gonna be the schema, so we need to say what type of thing it is. Let's get this password is gonna be string, user is gonna be a string as well. So this is the actual schema, so it's kind of the rule that our data has to follow. Then we create a user model based on this schema, so we can do some operations on the schema. Okay, so that's the user model. Now we actually create the user. user model, let's just give it some values. Okay, let's say like username John, password 123. Okay, so this is still not gonna save it in the database. Also, what is this happening? This is supposed to be model, mongoose.model, like that. Okay, so now we need to actually save it in the database. So if you want to save it in the database, we just say user1.save. Because we've done new user model, we can just do it like this. Alright, so our database is running, it's connected. Let's see if it worked. To check this, we're gonna go to our database, go to users. So I'm using a special tool to check this called MongoDB Compass, and yep, we can just see the user is created, the database is connected, so database is done. So now let's go ahead and download some CSS library. So Angular 1 does not have very good support for styles, so we're gonna use Bootstrap 3. It's kind of an old one, but it's still pretty decent. So let's go and Google Bootstrap 3 download, go ahead and go inside, download Bootstrap and download it. Once we download it, we just save it in somewhere, and let's go ahead and so we're gonna go unzip it, open it, and go inside CSS, and the only file we care about is bootstrap.min.css. that contains all the styles we want. So let's go and go up, and I'm gonna paste it in library folder, and we can just remove everything else, the leftover things. Okay, so the only thing we need to do now is just include it in our file. So let's go style sheets, and let's go link rel is equal to style sheet, href is equal to lib / angular.min.js. Okay, so now let's test and make sure it works. So we create a span, class is equal to badge primary. That should be a class in Bootstrap, and we close the badge. Okay, let's open our web page. The big moment, is it here? It's not here. Okay, what mistake did I make? I can see that I actually used Angular. I need to use Bootstrap here. There you go. Okay, so also we have another problem. Our server is not restarting when we change the HTML file. Let's just fix that right now. So we just add a new file, nodemon.json, and in there we're just gonna tell it to also look for these. So the extensions that it's gonna check for are JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. Okay, now if you update our HTML, I think we have to restart it first before it sees the changes. There we go. Now if you update our HTML, it's gonna restart the server. Anyways, back to here. Is it gonna work? Yes. As you can see, the Bootstrap style was applied and Bootstrap is working.